So we've got it updating the user in app state when we submit the form. So now we just need to do the tricky part, which is decide whether to show sign in or whether to show main. So to me, even though that's how I wrote it here, I was just trying to give you hints. When state.user is not set, show the sign in component. What I really mean is when we're not signed in and when we are signed in. So what I want to do on app is write a method called signed in. That tells me whether we're signed in or not. And that's going to work by checking that. So what I'll just do is return this.state.user.uid. So if there's a UID, then we're signed in. If there's not, then we're not. But it sounds better to say if signed in than to say if this.state.user.uid. We might change the way we determine whether somebody's signed in at some point in the future. All right, so how do we do this? How'd you do it, Kendall?
I just did for my signed in thing, I just made a separate boolean to show if they were signed in, and then in the render I did if render if it's signed in.
Then return one thing. So I basically did the same thing there. I made a boolean, except it's a method, except for inside of a variable, but whatever. So I have something to check whether I'm signed in. So what she did was, if one thing, then return one thing, otherwise return another. So that totally works, sure. If signed in, or this dot signed in rather, return the one thing, else return the other. So that's one way to do it. Is that what you did? Yeah. Okay, cool. Totally legit. It's more fun to do it inside the return statement like this, to do it inside the JSX. Ternary. Yeah, you can use the ternary operator. That's all right. So thing about ifs, the reason we can't do an if in the middle of the return here is ifs aren't actually expressions. They don't return anything, so it's going to freak out. But ternaries are. So those are the inline ifs with the question marks and the colons. You know what I'm talking about? So here's the syntax. Very common in a lot of languages. So all the C-like languages have it. JavaScript has it. Even things like Ruby have it. And they use the exact same syntax. So you can do something like if 4 less than 7. So there's my condition. Question mark, what to do if it's true, colon, what to do if it's false. So you just put the else after the colon there. Yay! For greater than 7, cuss. See? Question mark, okay, condition, question mark, what if it's true, colon, what if it's false? You dig? And it actually returns something. So we could do that right in the middle of our JSX, if we were so inclined. So our condition is, of course, this is a JavaScript expression, so it goes inside curly braces. So this dot signed in is what I'm checking. If it's true, I want main, colon, if it's false, I want sign in. So the syntax may look a little strange at first, but once you get used to it, I like this way of doing conditional rendering a lot of times. Especially formatting it like this, not too hard to read. You can very quickly see I'm saying, if I'm signed in, this component. Otherwise, this component. Unless I'm a filthy liar and none of this works. Let's find out. Never know. Sometimes I like to lead the next generation of young developers astray so that my generation can stick around a little longer. Job security. Age discrimination isn't illegal against the young. It's against the old that it's illegal. Ha ha. Okay, let's log in. a@a.com. There you are. Totally worked. So, hey, we could sign out too, right? That doesn't seem hard. Let's write it. Sign out. What should it do? Someone other than those two. Or Sahej, not you either. You're not allowed to answer. You've answered too much. He knows too much. How do we do sign out now? Okay, Thomas.
Would you just set the UID back to nothing so that it
Why not? Or the whole user object. Sure. This dot set state. Set the user back to an empty object. Seems legit. Does it work? Let's sign in. a@a.com. Let's find our app component in our dev tools. There it is. Now that's $R. Switch to the console, you filthy browser. Okay, here we go. $R.sign out. Oh yeah. So that's what we want to happen when we click that button right there, right? So let's pass this method down as a yes, as a prop. It's always prop. That's right. If you have something in one component you want it in another, props. Okay, so that has to go through main, right? It's in the sidebar. So it's called sign out. What do I put inside the curly braces here? Someone who hasn't answered anything yet. What do I put here? That's right, thank you. This dot sign out. Okay, so that takes me to main. Needs to go down to sidebar. Sign out equals. Now what do I do here? Someone who hasn't answered yet. Kieran? It is indeed this dot props dot sign out. That's right. This is a class, so that's how the props come in. They come in as this dot props. And inside app, that's just this dot sign out because it's a method that lives right in that class. But inside main, it's being passed in as a prop, so it's this dot props dot sign out. So that takes us to sidebar. And that sign out button is in user info. So it needs to go into user info. And what do I put inside the curly braces here? Someone who hasn't answered yet. Yeah.
This props.sign out or props.sign out.
Props.sign out, right? No this dot props because this is a stateless functional component. Now, of course, we could break these out with destructuring. Looks like user and sign out are my two props. So I could put curly braces user sign out up here. Then I can just say user equals user, sign out equals sign out. And I don't need props. Just break them out up here. Can totally do that. And that brings us to user info. And there's the sign out button. So it needs to go in there. Now what do I do? Someone who hasn't answered yet. Yeah. Sign out equals sign out. That is how I want that line to read, but that's not going to work quite yet. There's one more thing we need to do before that'll work. We need to, yeah, so it's being passed in from sidebar, but we're not destructuring it in here. So where do I need to change that? Okay, sure. You haven't said anything, have you? All right. What's up, Catherine? In the argument list. Yeah. Right? This is where our props come in. So I need to destructure it out there so it's available down here. So then in the sign out button component, I want an on click. Now what do? Somebody else. You can do it. I want my on click to work. What do? I need to make 2 changes. All right, Sadie. So I need to pass in the props, right? So I could either put the props in there like that, or I could destructure it. Either way. Destructuring it would be like this. So if I do it this way, then what do I put down here in the curly braces? Come on. Did I call on you, conboy? That's okay. Sign out, yes. If I had left props up here, then props.sign out, right? So props is what's being passed in, but I could destructure that to make individual local variables out of whatever that object.signout is. Then I can call it signout down here. Now that is passing a prop through an awful lot of components that aren't actually using it. You're probably thinking there's a better way. There is, but you don't want to know about that right now because it gets pretty complicated. But just so you know, when things get even hairier, there is a way you can do this kind of stuff without having to pass a prop through, 20 freaking components that don't even use it. But we'll talk about that on the very last day of class. Yeah, Catherine. So this dot sign out, because it was actually defined on this component. Like that's where sign out actually lives. It lives on app. So inside app, I can call it as just this dot sign out because it's just a method of that component. It's actually defined right there. But when you've passed it in using this syntax, then it's a prop. So then it just depends on whether the component is a class or a function. If it's a class, then you'll say this.props.signout from inside that one. And if it's a function, then you'll pass it through the props argument. Yep. Does it work? Did we actually get all this hooked up right? b@a.com. We did it. Nice work, us. It was a team effort. Us. I said go us. No, I did not say Gus. I wish I had, but I didn't. So implement authentication workflow. We don't have real authentication. We're not checking any passwords, but we have the workflow working. So we'll probably change something in sign-in or app.js eventually, but all the other components that need that kind of information probably don't never need to change again. Cool.